Welcome, everyone, to the next wave of retail. I'm Robin Lewis, CEO of the Robin Report, and we are presenting this Thought Leadership Forum in collaboration with the Coles Center for Retailing, a part of the School of Human Ecology at the University of Wisconsin, from which I might add, has produced many of retailing's greatest leaders. Okay, a little context before we start. If you were to take some reports on the future of retail literally, you might think the most capable leaders and operators will be engineers. By the way, Jeff Bezos, for one, had 2 degrees in engineering. Anyway, the advances in data analytics and algorithmic models seem to make retail a game of mathematics versus merchandising, if you will. And with the increasing customer demand for personalized service matched with personalized purchase recommendations, what exactly is the skill set required for retail leaders? And where does intuition, gut instinct, and qualitative innovation end up in that mix? So these are the big ideas we're going to be exploring today in this conversation with one of the most creative retail CEOs, in my opinion, Dick Johnson of Footlocker, and entrepreneur Stacy Igel of Boy Meets Girls. And by the way, my 2 friends, this should be a fluid conversation. So both of you feel free to jump in, to comment on or ask a question of each other. So Stacy, let me start with you. First, give us a little background about your brand, and then what you believe to be the most important skills for tomorrow's retail leaders, and what kind of education or training do they need to be successful?
Okay, well, nice to meet you all virtually. This is really an amazing conversation. I love to do this. I've been doing a lot of this during this pandemic. And I did go to University of Wisconsin, graduated in retailing design, and I got a business certificate from the business school. I started Boy Meets Girl in 2001. My first trade show was supposed to be the week of 9/11.
Wow.
I come from a Chicago girl who moved to New York to build her dream and designed for the greats, Donna Karan, Izod, worked for Zandra Rhodes in London, and was about to, go into my first trade show. My first trade show. And my family are a family of doctors and lawyers and no one in fashion. And I said to myself, how could I be in fashion during this time? And what will I do? I need to help people. I have friends we had lost in 9/11, and wow. I was young and I just didn't know if I could do this. And then I realized this was my dream, and I had left my Izod, designing there, and started freelancing design to have this show. And I decided that this would be a place where I would showcase my line, and the line would be dedicated to survivors and also families who had lost members in 9/11. And so I was an impact brand from out of the box. I didn't set out to be an impact brand right away, but that's what I had to do. That was my calling. So that was my give back. So the second question was what? That was
education. What kind of skills and kind of education or training do you feel they need?
So to be a leader today, I definitely believe that you have to have a diverse education. You also have to learn what's happening around in the world. You have to be able to communicate to your employees and to the people around you. I mean, communication is the biggest skill that I think will lead a leader. And I think that there's, for me, education, going to the University of Wisconsin, having this rah-rah school, but also having these special classes that were focused on the human psychology of a person, about what makes you tick. Retail classes, design classes, the business certificate, all these different classes that shaped who I am. But experience in the retail field is so key to the success as well.
It's interesting, Stacy, because I grew up in the shadow of the University of Wisconsin. I lived in a little town just west of Madison. And I got my education up at one of the state schools in Eau Claire.
What was the town?
It was a little town called Mount Horeb.
Okay.
Because we used to spend a lot of summers up there. I'm from Illinois.
If you ever drive west of Madison,
yeah.
It's just a little stop in the road. But I graduated with an accounting degree, right? So again, I understood the business of the business, if you will. But Robin, to get at the question, I think that it really is going to take a multifaceted background to be successful in retail. I think there is the quantitative side of it that's very engineering and very math driven, and especially if you're looking at where to place stores, if you're understanding the flow through your websites and your digital connectivity, et cetera. I think that quantitative view really helps. But and probably if you're selling toothpaste at a grocery store, right? Understanding the flow of that is probably more quantitative than qualitative. But I think when you're in an industry like we are with sneakers, and our mission is truly, our purpose is to inspire and empower youth culture, you have to have a great understanding of what motivates them and what drives them. You have to look for the opportunities to appeal to them, right? And I don't know that the straight quantitative analysis does that. We use a lot of quant in the company, right? When we think about where we put stores, when we think about how many of what to buy and all of those things, there's a lot of analytics and a lot of math skills behind it. But I still think in a want-based business like we're in at Footlocker Inc., that there's an awful lot of gut feel. There's a lot of art as opposed to science, but I think it's truly a mix. And I think the retail leaders of the future are going to need empathy. I think if COVID has taught us anything, that you have to be empathetic in your leadership, whether you're in retail or wherever you are. But I think the retail leaders are going to need agility. They're going to need flexibility. They're going to need to be able to maneuver quickly, because the pace of retail change, the pace of trends with our consumers has just accelerated so much because of the digital devices we all carry. Mm-hmm. It used to be that if Kanye West wore something in Tokyo, it would take weeks, months for it to be seen in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, where I'm from, right? Mm-hmm. But now Kanye shows up on stage in something, and boom, everybody around the globe sees it and wants it now. So. I think that it's got to be flexibility, agility. You got to have a little art. You got to have a little science. You got to have a little qualitative. You got to have a little quantitative. And I think if it all mixes up, you have success.
Yeah. The art and the science. I think in years past, before the technology era, I think successful retailers was pretty much balance more towards the art, wouldn't you say, Dick? The merchandise, the product, and I don't know what percentage I would put on it.
Yeah, I don't know that I can put a percentage on it, but I would say that prior to really the advent of technology and when you were bringing things into the store, you were sort of directing the consumer, right? Now the consumer is very much in charge of that relationship. And that's where I think you need that mix. And predictive analytics are a wonderful thing. Yeah. And I certainly believe in them. But I also think that we've got a great merchant team that can help predict what this consumer is going to want, right? And that's the difference between a want-based business and a need-based business, right? That people go through, a dozen eggs at a certain pace, and you can replenish those eggs. People in our business, they want a new pair of sneakers for the party, for the dance, for the whatever they're doing, and you don't have control over that from a quantitative formula that you can get after.
Right.
And you don't really have for sneakers, you can't do on-demand sneakers. You can, but not the type of sneakers that you're selling, right?
Yeah.
Like a Nike.
I guess there'll be we'll eventually be able to print them in store, I guess. But
Right. Exactly.
you're right. There's a lead time. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
There's a lead time. There's a production cycle. There's a development cycle that's not, as it's needed. It's really trying to figure out, tell the story around it. Ultimately, I think that's one of the things that we didn't touch on, Robin, is that the art and science mix is part storytelling in my business. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where all advertising and all marketing sort of got started. But I think today that the passions of our consumers run even deeper. So if you can connect a great story with a great product, in a great environment, by the way, where they can engage, whether that's a digital environment or a physical environment, then I think you have what you're ultimately looking for to drive success in retail.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned a story. Brands used to be a symbol of a promise, but brands today, there's a story, you're right, behind the most successful brands. I think that's important to bring out. So Stacy, given, that the next gens are so digitally savvy, how do you plan for, and what do you predict about the future retail? In other words, do you think stores will still be relevant? Give us your point of view on that.
I do think stores will still be relevant. I was 23 when I started my brand, and when I used to show it at the trade shows to my buyers, they'd say, "It's so young, it's so fresh, it's so young," and I'm like, "Yes, it's young, and I'm young."
That's the point.
For a while, it was like too young, and now I'm like, everyone thinks I'm 23 still, which is awesome. So I've just sort of traveled with myself and my consumer. So my millennial moms still buy the clothes, and I have their daughters now. And their boys too. But yeah, so I think that the way I speak to Gen Z is because I've been there, right? So I started with a flip phone, a computer on my back, going to Union City, New Jersey to produce my goods and come back to a home office. And, I have all these experiences, and they're real and they're genuine. And I've always spoke about humanizing the brand in the social media space while Twitter was happening, while Facebook was coming out, while TikTok was coming out. People were coming to me to test it and figure it out and talk about it from the human side. There was no other brands talking about it from a designer's point of view when I started talking in those spaces. And so I had this connection to the consumer, but also when you Google Boy Meets Girl and you Google Stacy Igel, you can see that we've been giving back since day one. So the Gen Z consumer, to me, can call I don't know if you beat me out right now, but the bullshit, right? And they know if a brand is coming into talking about pride, let's say, for the first time, when another brand has been doing it since its inception. And I think that's something very important to know, because they have everything. Unlike myself with a flip phone, they were born with a phone.
Yeah.
And they had this, they are on their TikToks and their Snapchats, and they're learning the news from those places. And so it's just a different psyche. And so when they see a brand doing something that they know is not right, they call it.
And I think that's exactly right, Stacy. That the Sephora experience at Kohl's might be subtly different than the Sephora business in their standalone stores.
Yeah.
But you're going to get the essence of the brand. They're going to create an experience. Certainly the Michelle and the team at Kohl's understand creating experiences in a big box, which I just said is difficult to do. But when they partner with people like Sephora, and you walk in and you're going to get that, just much the way that Brian and Mary from Brian Cornell and Mary Dillon from Ulta and Target figured out how to you can't take an Ulta beauty store and drop it into to Target and make it work, right? You have to make it right for the consumer that's in that store. Yeah. So I applaud that sort of creativity, to your point, Stacy, of if it's right for the consumer, right? Who are we to say that the consumer that walks into Kohl's shouldn't have access to Sephora, right?
Exactly.
And I think that brands create their own distribution models, they create their own segmentation models. and then you have to be able to be agile and adaptive enough to service those consumers.
But the point is that how you market it, how you tell your story, what you're doing is going to be how you shape it. And it's good for both parties. And so I think that's what we're going to see a lot more of.
You know, I have to go back to something Blake Nordstrom told me a while ago. And Dick, it's really to your point. He said, when my father was running the business probably a half a century ago, they would never even think about putting a brand in their store that would be competitive to Nordstrom. He said, our consumers love Nordstrom for certain things, but then they'll go shopping in other stores for other brands. And he said, if they love us, why don't we invite those other brands, even if they're competitors, to be in our store, because a consumer will love us even more because it's all there. I mean, when you kind of get out of the box and think that way, it's a whole distribution thing. And I think that technology is making it possible, the consumer's making it possible. And I don't think those old kind of rules really pertain anymore.
No.
I think there's been a big evolution. I think you're right, Robin, in that, the retail, when it was done when I was a kid, right? I mean, I've referenced toothpaste a couple of times. You had 3 or 4 different brands that you could buy. Today, I can't even shop for toothpaste, right? I just want simple toothpaste. I don't need, So, exactly. So there is an overwhelming amount of selection and choice for consumers, right? Yeah. And how you focus on your consumer helps you bring the right things to market for that consumer. I think ultimately that's what we're all after, is finding that right connection with the consumer. To your point, not unlike Mr. Nordstrom, who knew that his consumers loved Nordstrom's, right? But had the willingness to say, let's bring more things that our customers love to them in this box that's called Nordstrom. Exactly. And I think that's a starting point.
There was a hip hop documentary, and I think it was Ice-T was in I might be wrong on this, but I think it's Ice-T was in a Gap commercial wearing a FUBU hat, wearing a Gap sweatshirt, and it was way before collaboration, right? But they let him do that. So it sort of sums up like all these different connections and putting it together and carrying different brands and Nordstrom's that he never thought he would. Yeah. So it was a great documentary. I'll send you a link on it.
Kind of switching gears here a little bit, because this is such a hot topic. The role and responsibility of a retailer to all of its stakeholders, right? In other words, diversity, equity, inclusion, that whole DEI thing, and the ESG, the acronym for environmental, social, and governance. And a lot of studies have been done on this, and most of them say that the millennials and the Gen Zs are driving a lot of this. Their set of values, coming into and growing. So what do you guys think about the responsibility of retail? Footlocker, for example, Dick, how do you view all this?
Well, I think ultimately, Robin, it's good for business at the end of the day, right? There's a cost that's associated with getting some of the programs started, but we've been a company that's focused on diversity from the get-go, right? And trying to create a culture where people feel like they belong and can bring their best selves. Certainly the younger generations may be driving some of it, but there could be some guilt from some of us older guys that realize that we're not going to leave the world in the same shape that we inherited.
Yeah, you got
it. So as we think through, and we're smarter now. The younger consumer is smarter today. So I think that the environment is critical, right? All you have to do is look around the globe right now and see what's going on. with 130-degree temperatures and
Yeah.
mudslides and rain in Germany and fires that just broke out in Greece and Italy, right? I mean, it's everywhere.
Unbelievable.
And so we all need to do our part, right? We only have one Earth, and where I guess the thing that I would say is this Earth is probably not designed to hold the number of people that it has right now, quite honestly.
Mhm.
But we are where we're at, and I think we all have to do all do the responsible thing. But we have to win for all of our stakeholders, right? Certainly shareholders are looking for returns, et cetera. But I think even more so today, they're putting in the ESG filters, they're putting in the DEI filters, and making sure that we as business leaders are doing the right things. And the challenge is that we as the business leaders have to find a way to balance profitability with the investment in ESG. But I think that it becomes a virtuous cycle and fuels better business ultimately. So as difficult as it is to sometimes go through changes like that, where the real focus switches from, quarterly returns to, moving over to ESG, I think, through the ESG filter, seeing business through the ESG filter, I think can be a bit painful at times. But again, I think in the end, it's good for business and it's good for all of us.
Yeah, I think so too. Stacy, what do you think about all this?
I mean, I've been in the space of doing this for the past 20 years. So I do believe that companies that do not have diversity inclusion officers should, if that's needed for their space, and think there should be more community-based groups that talk about things that, maybe there's people who want to learn about how to be an anti-racist, and how to teach their children on that. And there should be classes from the organization for the employees on that and for the leaders. So I think that what's happening, some people can say there's a woke movement and a celebrity movement, and then other people like myself think this is a great thing that people are stepping in and learning and educating, and it's needed, and this will drive our future. And I don't necessarily know if it's being driven by millennials or Gen X, or if this is just things are happening and things need to change, and change has always been at the forefront of what we all want. And I think that's is now being fueled by COVID just happened. People started to read more, and get more educated and learn. And so I think it's a really important time.
We're in a world, Robin, where all you have to do is click a button and you can find other people that share your exact views, or they espouse to share your views, and fuel the fire, right? If you've got a rage burning, they will help that rage burn. And again, it may be authentic, it may not, and it goes back to my earlier comments that we as a brand have to be authentic, right? We have to stand up and talk about the things we believe in. We have to have that dialogue that's sometimes a difficult conversation to have, but I really believe that that's our responsibility to our consumer and the world that we live in.
In your stores, like you said, you have 2,700 stores and communities that those conversations are could be incredible. These bringing those consumers to the store to discuss, because for me,
Stacy, have you got one or two or three interesting innovations you've seen in retail that you want to share?
I think that, gosh, I mean, I've seen a lot of tech, new customization, building things, on-site embroidery, all these different things that we've seen. I'm not really think those things move or shake. I like customization, but I don't think these new tech things for me, like, fitting your jeans in a machine that gets the right fit. And I don't think that moves the wheel for the consumer. Like, I do believe it's the experience. Where I am testing things, and I've always tested things, I'm working with this new app. It's in beta called Kumoko, where it's going to test the backgrounds of images on your e-commerce site and see how the backgrounds affect the buying pattern. So I'm doing something with color with.
I think that it is about finding deeper ways to engage with your consumer. We've launched a membership loyalty program. We used to have just a discount program in our. We found out that what's important to our customers is access, right? Do they like to save money? Sure, they like to save money, but they'd love to be in the background of one of Stacy's shoots and watch what really happens when you've got the models and you're doing the shooting and all of the dialogue that happens. They'd love to be able to go to a concert at Madison Square Garden and have an after party at our NYC 33 space that's just for a very select few people, right? So they want access. So I think we innovate every day trying to find new ways to connect in create deeper engagements with our consumer. There's great technologies, right? I mean, Stacy talked about some of them, and I think that the ability to take a great digital experience and move that consumer into a physical experience and have them feel like it's fairly seamless, right? It never will be, right? I mean, a click of a button is different than standing in line at a cash register, right? But trying to create as much energy for that consumer as you can, I think, is just part of the day-to-day innovation that happens in retail.
Are you working with the NFT kind of like model where it's bringing it offline to online?
Yeah, we're talking to a lot of NFT on a lot of NFT projects, right? I mean, again, it's fairly innovative.
Yeah.
One of our guys just quoted that they think that an article was written that 98% of all NFTs will end up having zero value at the end of the day. But I think that there's it's exciting and generating an awful lot of energy right now. So again, there's a great innovation that could be really cool storytelling down the road. I've got one of one, right? That's the cool thing.
I heard there was an artist that not Ed Sheeran, but who had sold his NFT, but for the experience you talked about, that it was to go backstage to the concert.
Yep.
So how you have changed your model, I think that is what people want. They want to see, they want to go, they want to have that VIP experience.
Yep.
It's what I've heard here today is incredible. And Dick has been in the business for a long time. I mean, retail used to be put a store in the center of town and people would go to the store. And it is all now, it is about both the physical store itself and online. Technology is an incredible new tool, okay, to help, to be a catalyst to get closer to your consumer, engage with them in a more intimate, personalized way. And that's what retail is all about. What I've heard from you guys throughout this conversation is experience. And it has to do with both, Stacy, it's omni-channel, and some people are getting it right real well. I think Dick is. And bringing all of that into the physical store. It really is a new world. And you look 5 years out from now, one of the questions is, how do you see 5 years out from now? From what we've covered today, it seems to be pretty difficult. Is there something, Dick, that you see 5 years out?
Yeah, Robin, I just think the things that we see today are going to accelerate, right?
Yeah.
I think that you're going to have in-depth dialogue with your customer on a pretty regular basis, whether they realize it or not. You're going to learn more from data that you can analyze and understand what they want. I really believe that we will certainly be more community-based than ever, right? It won't be just plopping a store down in the center of town,
right,
but it will be finding the right location in a community that we know has an appetite for the products that we sell and for our brand, and create an engaging experience. I think that will just continue to evolve. Technology will continue to be upgraded and change maybe some of the ways that we do things. But I think that it is still about creating a great experience for your consumer and truly having deep engagement with that consumer.
Yeah, and technology can't do all of that. Stacy, you have a comment?
Well, I have a fun one because I was thinking about this. I'm thinking Boy Meets Girl, Footlocker, and Amazon fly to the moon and have a pop-up shop.
You think in 5 years, Stacy? That might be a little quick, but maybe.
You know, they did go to space recently.
It's that extra few 100,000 miles.
Right, it's just, you know, that's the NFT VIP experience.
Wow.
Fly with Richard Branson and with the new Amazon CEO.
Unbelievable.
And Dick.
Funny. And then Musk is going to go to Mars, right?
Right.
Anyway, well, listen, this has been a fantastic learning experience for me, and I'm sure for our audience. And Stacy and Dick, you guys are terrific. I totally agree with everything you guys said, and I'm not patronizing you. And both of you have hit, I think, on the most important issues and opportunities we have in this industry today. So I want to thank you so much for coming on and having this conversation.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, Robin. And Stacy, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you so much.
And I thank our audience, as always.